Good morning. Hi, my name is Basia Nesbitt-Tucker. I am from Topeka, Kansas, which is just about an hour away from here. It's the capital of Kansas. I am currently a junior, going into my senior year in August for Calvary, and I'm currently studying music education. Um, so yeah, let's get into it. My topic is call or called. And I would say the definition is to give someone or something a name, or to know or address someone by a particular name, maybe an identity. Um, in Romans 9:26 through 20 or 24 through 26, we see that God calls his people from both Israel as well as the Gentiles. And he in this passage he's referencing Hosea, the book of Hosea. Um, but yeah, so calling. I think we all probably understand this idea um, pretty basically, in the sense of, if you want to call your mom or call your dad or maybe call a sibling or a friend, all you have to do is just pick up the phone, call them and say, hey, so and so. Hey, mom. And that by saying mom, we're identifying them as mom. That would be their identity, what we call them. And so, yeah, identity is a very important thing because it's the name for which we give the person, or the name for which we give the thing. And so I would say that there are three ways to approach this idea of calling, or to be called. And that would be through worship as the first one, identity as the second, and the third is vocation. Um, it is my opinion that everybody in the world, we're all called, but not all follow the calling. Um, so it says in Matthew 9:13, it says, go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and not sacrifice, for I came not to call the righteous, but sinners. So here we see that Jesus came on this earth, and he says over and over and over again, he came not to call the righteous, but to call the sinner, which is a blessing, because we are so undeserving. I mean, we're sinners. We're so undeserving of him and his love and his mercy that he grants us. Also in Matthew 11:28, it says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He's calling us to him, asking us to come, just as if you were to say, hey, best friend or friend, come over, I want to hang out or whatever. I mean, Jesus in general is saying, come to me, I want your burden. So yeah, so let's start with the first one, worship. He calls us, or in this verse it says, come before him. Just as, for example, David came before the Lord and he danced with all his might. He came before and he worshiped God. He was called to worship him. We're called to worship God. It is basically our purpose. The Westminster Catechisms say, what is man's purpose? Well, man's chief end, which is his purpose, is to glorify God and enjoy him forever. So as such, that is our main purpose. So we ought to enjoy him forever by worshiping him, and giving him the honor and the credit that he is due. And yeah, the second is identity. Isaiah 40:26, we see that names are very important. It says, lift up your eyes on high and see who created these. He who brings out their host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power and not one is missing. So let's go back to that. It says, calling them all by name. God is the one who gives us our identity. we see in the Bible that the whole Bible is about his identity, and through that we learn about our identity, because we can't know our own identity if we don't know how we were created in the first place. Um, and so names were super, super important in the biblical times. And we see that through Saul becoming Paul, or Abram becoming Abraham, all because God was working in their lives and he had a purpose and a plan for them. And so God identifies us as his own. We are his, created in Christ Jesus. Our identity is found in him, and as such, this is what drives our purpose and drives what we do in life. And so, speaking of purpose, our third is vocation. This is the idea of being appointed to do something. We all have different gifts and talents. We all have different expertise or things that we are good at doing. And as such, we're able to work as a body, not as all the same people doing the same thing, but as individuals working together to bring about the kingdom. For example, Paul, one of the greatest writers of the Bible, he was named and called to be an apostle. This was his vocation that the Lord gave him. We see that in Romans 1:1. But he was given this vocation, this job, and he was given this role to serve. And there's a passage, and I don't remember what it is, but there's a passage where it talks about we are a body, like not we need the eye, we need the heart, we need the limbs, we need the hands, we need everything. And so we can't function without one of those, as is the body. So we're all appointed to do something, and we're all called to do something. Our first and foremost calling is to praise and worship him, to find our identity in him. And then thirdly, our vocation is our calling, how we are to serve the body and how we are to serve God through our work and through the gifts and the talents that he has given us. And so vocationally, this is kind of where people get a little bit confused. Sometimes people are like, well, what is my calling and what am I supposed to be doing in my life, and where would the Lord have me? And there are many, many things I think that God calls us to. But I think it is important to know that our first and foremost calling, as I just mentioned before, is to him. It says in Ephesians 2:10, it says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them." God has called us to do good works and in whatever job. And so it is my understanding that as long as you are following God and you are following his goodness and his mercy, and he is that you talk to him in your life, and that he is a person, or he's the Lord of your life. As long as he's the Lord of your life, your desires will align with his desires, and as such you can do just about anything. I mean, anything that he has gifted you to do. For example, if you are really, really good at numbers and accounting or communication skills or something, and you are following hard after God, then you could do any job in the accounting or communications field. You could do just about anything, and it would be where God would have you, because you are serving in the role that you ought to, using your gifts and talents as you worship, and you know that your identity is found in him. And so I think oftentimes we get a little bit anxious about it, or wondering like, oh, am I really doing what the Lord wants me to do? Well, why don't you ask him? ask him if this is what you're supposed to be doing. He answers, maybe not in the way that we want or in the way that we expect, but he does answer. And he will let you know. But this is who we are, and it's what we ought to do. And that's what comes out of our identity. So anyways, I'm sure that the professor will explain it far better than I can. So thank you so much. Bye, guys.